The vampire, an undead creature who feeds on blood, has been featured in folklore for hundreds of years across many different cultures. The popularity of the vampire has not faltered, and in pop culture the vampire is more famous than ever, although the vampire of today is much different from the early vampires in folklore. During the 1800s, three incredibly important pieces of literature transformed the vampire from a horrifying creature into the charismatic and sophisticated vampire popular today. It is no coincidence that the three most popular pieces of vampire literature were created in the UK during the 1800s. Vampires, like any other monsters, are a reflection on the fears of society. For example, post-apocalyptic horror and monsters such as zombies have skyrocketed in popularity during modern times due to the fear of human annihilation by means such as nuclear war or mass contagion. For that reason, to understand what inspired these authors, it is important to understand what was happening during the time period. The Vampire, published in 1819, is the birthplace of the charismatic and romantic vampire which is common in fiction today. It has been credited with completely transforming the way society views the vampire. The story chronicles the experiences of a young man named Aubrey and his friendship with a mysterious man named Lord Ruthven. Aubrey accompanies Lord Ruthven on his travels and discovers that Lord Ruthven is a vampire who preys on young women. He is unable to share this discovery with others due to an oath that Lord Ruthven has made him take. The story concludes with the death of Aubrey's sister, who has fallen victim to Lord Ruthven and is unable to know the truth from Aubrey due to the oath. Lord Ruthven is a reflection of the fears in the 1800s, such as the tuberculosis epidemic. Tuberculosis, also known as the White Death, due to the fact that it leaves people with extremely pale skin, killed around 900 people a year during this time. What made tuberculosis so terrifying was the fact that in most cases, there were no signs at all that a person had it. Half of those that do show signs, around 10% of people, will die if the disease goes untreated. In this way, tuberculosis is quite similar to Lord Ruthven, a man with unusually pale skin, as they are both hidden in plain sight. So why make the character so charismatic? There are a few reasons for this. To begin, Britain had recently been at war with France. This caused a lot of distrust between the two countries. Lord Ruthven is a mysterious stranger from far away. This reflects the attitude of British society about outsiders during the time. Another reason that Lord Ruthven was such a charismatic character had to do with the maiden tribute of modern Babylon, which is a series of newspaper articles which discussed child prostitution that was happening in the United Kingdom. The articles discussed the procuration of virgins, the sale and purchase of children, the entrapping and ruin of women, among other things happening during the time. Due to these newspaper articles, the age of consent was raised from age 13 to 16. These horrifying articles most likely inspired the character of Lord Ruthven, a man who was most interested in young, innocent women and wanting to ruin them. 52 years after The Vampire, Carmilla was written by the author Sheridan Le Fanu. The story follows the main character Laura and her interactions with a strange visitor named Carmilla. As the two become closer, Carmilla begins to make romantic advances towards Laura. The story ends with the revelation that Carmilla is secretly Countess Mircalla Karnstein, now a centuries-old vampire. Carmilla would add two new fears to the vampire literature, the fear of female independence and homosexuality. During the time Sheridan Le Fanu was writing Carmilla, the literacy rate for men and women had recently become equal, which allowed women a new form of empowerment. This book could be seen as a response to the growing empowerment, as Carmilla is portrayed as extremely powerful, and her love for Laura shows how a powerful woman could corrupt a more innocent one.
I am Dracula.
Bram Stoker's Dracula tells the story of a vampire from Transylvania who travels to London and preys on the citizens. It is told through journal entries, diaries, letters, and telegrams written by the main characters. The story of Dracula further expands on the fear of outsiders we know from the vampire and Carmilla. The Count's migration to England can be used to represent the fears of Eastern European immigrants immigrating to England. Between 1881 and 1900, the number of Jewish people living in England had increased due to anti-Semitism elsewhere. In Victorian literature, Jewish people were commonly referred to as parasites. The novel also depicts caricatures of Slovak and Romani people who were considered barbarians. Immigrants were seen as intruders who would reduce the racial purity of England and disrupt the domestic order. In conclusion, it is no coincidence that three of the most influential pieces of vampire literature all came out in the same century. Vampires, like any other monster, are a reflection of the fears within society, and heightened fears of disease, sexual power, and immigrants made it the perfect time for the vampire to become more popular.